Hold on one second. We about to get to the bottom of this, ladies and gentlemen. This don't make no sense whatsoever. Welcome to the Dark Waters channel, where we explore mysteries, figure out the truth, dive into politics, and anything else you want to know about. That's what we doing over here, baby. Let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, looks like I got to run that one back because my audio was down the entire time that I was recording for the past 30 minutes. Listen, the one and only James Williams, Dark Waters, and this is the objective of this video is for me to show you what I'm seeing, where I say that there are 3 terrifying, scary stories that are in the news that you need to be aware of. But we need to start here with the prophetic warning from this gentleman right here as it pertains to what's coming down the pipeline in America and what he saw. This warning is from 3 days ago, and you'll understand why I say these things are scary.
It was hot outside, and I saw these men collecting fertilizer through different places so that they would not be detected. Okay? It was like different locations buying fertilizer in bulk as much as they could without drawing suspicion. That's the way I would say it. And so these men were buying this fertilizer, and so they were storing it. And I saw massive dump trucks with separation of in the back of these dump trucks, separation with 50-gallon drums, all filled with different kind of chemicals to make what was happened in Oklahoma City back in the 90s. Okay? This happened in the 90s. And it was a...
Now, if you understand what Oklahoma City bombing was in the 90s, which I'm not going to say it here because I'm going to have to deal with all the foolishness from YouTube. If you truly understand what the Oklahoma City bombing was and who was behind the Oklahoma City bombing, then you'll understand why what he's saying right now is significant, and it ties into what I'm going to say next.
Massive thing, not black powder, but this fertilizer stuff. And I saw fertilizer in this in a big dump truck, and the dump truck was like a big diesel that looked like construction workers. They had purchased a massive construction vehicle, like dump truck thing, and they put all this in so that it would cause a major catastrophic event. So they made the front of it armor-proof, bulletproof. Like you could not like shoot it and to make it stop it. So like very, very strong armor was on the front of this truck underneath it. So it wasn't able to be seen really well. Okay. And I saw these men, and this is going to go a lot of different places, okay? So you have to just listen to what I'm trying to tell y'all. I saw these men with these vests on in the front cab of the truck. Vest on. And they had explosives on these vests. And there was 2 men in the truck. And they took the truck and they used it to go through police barricade and military barricades in Washington, D.C. And when they did this and they tried to stop them because they were trying to do it at a checkpoint to stop them, they pushed through the barricade because the truck was very strong. And then they got them, they surrounded them, and they ignited their vest, and they took out everybody. And when this happened, it was a massive crater in the dirt, in the ground, and all the buildings were completely wiped out, and they tried to get as close as they could to the Capitol. Okay? I saw them trying to get as close as they could to the Capitol.
I'm going to stop right here. In the last video, I made this point, and I'm going to try and make this point more effectively. I feel like I was more relaxed the first time around, but it's okay. I don't think I need to be relaxed about this. For those people who will sit here and speculate whether his words that come out of his mouth are true or not. And there's been a lot of people who've targeted this gentleman, who gave very accurate prophecy on what would happen and what will come. There's going to be some things that are hit and miss. The man is not God. He hears from God. And then there's other factors that play into these prophecies, which is your prayers. So the first layer of defense is he's told you what he's seen. And so now you intercede by praying against what he's seen and asking the Lord to expose it, destroy it, blow up the bombs, do whatever needs to happen to stop this. So if enough people pray after the vision has been made known, then the chances of this happening decrease exponentially, right? But for those people who would attack him and say, well, oh, he was wrong, blah, 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 blah. And I know this doesn't bother the dude because you don't come online and share this type of information and have thin skin. I know he's aware of it, but I just want you guys to be aware. All right. There was one guy that came out and attacked him that's pretty big and was like, well, I don't know if this guy's telling the truth, but that guy don't even know that Jesus Christ is God. There's an argument on his channel saying Jesus Christ is not God. So I'm like, okay, bro, you ain't going to be able to discern whether this man is a prophet or not because you ain't got the basics of Christianity, which is Jesus Christ is God. I'm sorry. So, all right, with that being said, we need to get to the next part.
To major landmarks of Washington, D.C. The Lord spoke to me and he talked to me about this. He talked to me about lone wolves. Lone wolves were in America. They were just sympathetic. Like how do you say that? It is they were for terrorism, but they're on their own. They're part of the organization, but they're not a part of a big group. I saw different people like that had their own little agenda, like individuals throughout towns. Acting alone. Thank you. Acting alone. And they were all throughout. There were lots of them, and they weren't necessarily from across the border, from illegal immigrants. They were people that were inside that already lived here that were just nuts. And so the Lord showed me vans. Cargo vans, white vans, cargo vans with no windows on the side that would carry 16 passenger vans with those same kind of barrels in the back of these vans, like 50-gallon drums. They weren't as big as what was in the dump truck. This one dump truck. I saw vans with those barrels full of fertilizer inside of there, and they were parking them in New York City in like parking garages and close to buildings, so they did not look suspicious, okay? So I saw them trying to get as close as they could to Trump towers. And they had a plan to take out Trump towers all throughout America. Golf courses, places like that for attacks. The Lord spoke to me and he said to me, this is bigger than terrorists. I saw it was in retaliation for Assam Soleimani.
All right. I'm not going to go any further for right now because that's the point I wanted to make. Now watch this. When I talk about the scariest things in the news that you need to be aware of, watch this. So he's talking about Washington, D.C. He's talking about New York. And when you go back and just look recently in the news, BBC, FBI finds large explosive cache on Virginia farm. The FBI says it has discovered more than 150 bombs during a raid on a farm in Virginia, thought to be the largest such cache seized by the law enforcement agency in its history. Brad Spafford was arrested on the 17th of December in Isle of Wight County, 180 miles south of Washington, D.C. after a tip-off that he was stockpiling weapons and homemade ammunition on the property he shares with his wife and 2 young children. Investigators say some of the devices were found in a bedroom in an unsecured backpack labeled No Lives Matter, an apparent reference to a far-right anti-government movement. A lawyer for Mr. Spafford denied he is a danger to the community, is seeking his client's release from pre-trial detainment. All right. So we have 6 days ago, the information comes out about the explosives, right? And that it just confirms what he's saying about lone wolves. And this is the information that we have. This is what was released. This is what we know at this point in time. Now, one of the things that makes this even more terrifying is that now that we have have ample evidence of this. We've had, and that evidence is the attack in New Orleans, the attack in Vegas, this piece of information. The next thing that I think is absolutely terrifying is the fact that Donald Trump wants to do a rally in Washington, D.C. in context of what he has said as it pertains to the vehicle bombs, both the vans and on top of the vans, the heavy construction equipment that would have bulletproof fronts, and those men's intentions to be suicide bombers. So watch this.
Nation's capital since January 6, 2021. From there came the violent attack on the Capitol. Supporters attempted to stop the certification of the 2020 election results, and they stormed the Capitol. I want to bring in Charles Marino, former U.S. Secret Service and former Department of Homeland Security senior advisor. He is also author of Terrorists on the Border and in Our Country. Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. I know that you are thinking about this the minute that the president-elect announced that he would be having a rally before the inauguration. I know that you immediately, your mind is thinking about the security concerns and the force of manpower that would be needed. What security risks come with this kind of a rally?
Well, what I can tell you is the inauguration is designated as a national special security event. As a matter of fact, the Department of Homeland Security also designated the certification of the election as an NSSE, as they're known for this time around, following the incidents of last January 6th in the previous presidential cycle. So with this NSSE designation comes a whole of government approach to security, which is my way of saying that the resources essentially become unlimited from a security standpoint, all the way down to including participation of the National Guard. The fact that the president-elect is having a rally the day before the inauguration means that all of those systems, all of the infrastructure, all of the personnel will be well in place, well established to also handle that rally, which will essentially fall under the umbrella of the inaugural security footprint.
And see, this is where we get to the point to where it's absolutely terrifying. Because from a rally perspective, from an inauguration perspective, until Trump is in power, we're depending on the existing infrastructure, which we see is heavily compromised. And all this infrastructure has to communicate. So if the FBI detects a threat, they got to communicate it to the Secret Service. If the Secret Service detects a threat, they got to communicate it to the National Guard. And all these different layers of communications where just a simple delay, a simple, oh, I forgot, a simple, oh, I turned my radio off, could mean thousands of lives. In the context of what we're hearing from the prophetic voice, it's absolutely terrifying. Now, am I saying this for you to be afraid and be like, oh my God, I'm shivering? No, I'm saying this quite frankly so you can pray against it. But these are terrifying things in the news when you look at them from this perspective. It really is. Because you understand that what we've witnessed is the level to which our government is compromised. For example, the quote unquote Chinese hack of the Treasury and the in Janet Yellen, what is in the Federal Reserve? Get the hell out of here. You can't expect me to believe that the people who created the internet, DARPA, that is a black budget operation for America, doesn't have the ability to stop China from hacking our Federal Reserve, our communications infrastructure, our cell phones, from flying drones over our heads in New Jersey and New York. By the way, have you seen any footage of drones since it's been snowing? Have you seen any footage of drones since it's been snowing with high winds? Again, advanced propulsion devices would not have a problem flying through high winds and snowstorms. So be looking on the lookout for drone footage in the snow. It shouldn't have to be a perfectly clear night for you to see a drone. In fact, they should be zipping around whether it's snowing or not. You should see them lights in the sky no matter what. Them orbs should be darting around in the snow. But I digress. The point I'm making is we have these holes, these gaps in our security. And the last one I want to talk about is this: the hush money trial. Trump seeks to delay Friday's New York hush money sentencing. President-elect Donald Trump has asked New York judge to delay his sentencing in the hush money case scheduled for Friday, January 10th, arguing it should be postponed while he appeals regarding his presidential immunity is resolved. In a filing to the acting New York Supreme Court Justice Juan Merchan, Trump's lawyer stated the court should vacate the sentencing hearing scheduled for January 10, 2025, and suspend all further deadlines in the case until President Trump's immunity appeals are fully and finally resolved, which should result in a dismissal of the case, which should have been brought in the first place, which should not have been brought in the first place. Here's what I need you to understand. When he first came out and he did this, he said that Donald Trump needed to show up in court in New York. Remember what the prophet said: van bombs being planted all over New York in places that are inconspicuous, that won't be detected. And then all of a sudden, this whole hush money trial thing had gone away weeks ago. If I was to go through the drama of pulling up the videos, you would see where there were conversations about him delaying the sentencing until after the election, because at the end of the day, he ain't about to be no felon. I mean, it's going to be thrown out. I mean, it is what it is. So initially, when you hear this, you think, and I said this initially, I was like, man, these people just want to get a Pyrrhic victory, where it's like, hey, we said he went into office as a convicted felon, so he can make history, the first convicted felon to go into office as a president, so they have a talking point. But when you think about it, this may be completely more nefarious than what it seems, because and I have no way of knowing this because I don't talk to the attorneys, but if there's we know there's a $400 million something bond that's associated with this. If they were to deny him having access to court and saying that he had to show up personally in order to make sure that bond didn't have to be paid out, then they could be holding that leverage over his head to get him to come to New York just to whack the dude with truck bombs. Now, I will say this, and this is why I say it's scary. I will say this. I mean, Judge Manchin he wouldn't stand a chance. He would snowball his hell in chance of getting away from it. You know what I'm saying? If he was a part of something like that. But again, these are things that I see in the news that are scary, that when you look at them in the context of what's going on, traps and snares that are laid out everywhere. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they're everywhere. Those are the things that I see. I'll be back with more later. Deuces.